Hello, listeners. Welcome to Freelance Friday with Vaycasey, a podcast all about freelancing through the opinions and experience of a current full-time freelancer. And today's episode is one from a series of interviews with members from Weld. Weld is a collaborative workspace. They have a location in Nashville, and there used to be a location in Dallas where I was a member at for 4 years, and really helped me get my freelance business going and kind of get into that world. During my time there, I learned a lot, and I made a lot of great relationships with some incredible creatives in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. And so I decided to reach out to a few of them to see if they would be interested in doing interviews, and graciously and gratefully they accepted. And so these few episodes are going to be those interviews with them. And so today's interview is with Courtney Ware. Courtney is a filmmaker and an editor, and she has such an eye for beautiful cinematography and how to direct that. She worked on a feature-length film a couple years back called Sunny in the Dark, which you should definitely check out. Highly recommend it. It's such a beautiful film and was shot just a couple of blocks away from my studio. And Courtney has always been such a relaxed and down-to-earth person, somebody that I feel like I can talk to about things, and just kind of is so just even-natured. And it's very encouraging and inspiring to me to be in contact and community with people like that. And I'm specifically really just intrigued and inspired by the way that she goes about getting business, which you'll hear about in a few minutes in the interview with her. And so that's one of the reasons that I wanted to have her come on today for the interview. Anyway, let's jump into it. Thanks for coming on, Courtney.
Thanks, Casey.
This is Courtney Ware.
What's up?
Yet another Weld member.
Yet another one.
I've lost count of how many I've...
A post-Weld member.
Yeah. Post-Weld. Thanks for coming on. I've known Courtney for, I guess, probably been like 2 or 3, 4 years?
I think closer to 4 years.
4 years, something like that, I think. And Courtney's story is a little bit different because she does a lot of like indie film stuff, and kind of not your typical project, like freelance project, I feel like, when it comes to like production kind of stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'll let her tell you about it a little bit. I guess, like, I don't know, tell us about what you do. And I'm interested to see like kind of how you got into that.
Yeah. So I definitely call myself an independent filmmaker. And kind of my year is split about 50-50 between independent narrative work and what I call corporate work. So sometimes, depending on the year, it doesn't quite match that 50-50, but that's kind of what I'm aiming for. So most of my corporate stuff, at least in the last 2 years, has been a ton of editing, which has been really nice. But yeah, I just I kind of came up this way, more along the independent film side as far as getting into even the corporate stuff. I interned on my first film project when I was 18, and I kid you not, it was one of those, I got an email that was forwarded from a guy that knew a guy that knew a guy. There were like four forwards on this email. And it was this film production that was looking for interns, and reached out to them and said, "Hey, I'm in school, but can I come in the afternoons after I finish school?" And they're like, "Yeah." So I would leave film school, go to the film set. That crew moved on to another film. They brought me with them as a PA this time, so I got my first paycheck officially. And then that crew ended up moving on to Prison Break, which was being shot in Dallas. And so all through college, I was going to school on Tuesdays and Thursdays and working on as a PA on Prison Break Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So it was amazing because I got a ton of experience. I would be that kid who would, PAs, you get coffee and water for people, and I would bring water to the director and awkwardly stand there and eavesdrop as much as possible. But, I feel like I did it cool so that they didn't notice, maybe. I don't know, but...
I mean, you've gotten where you are. At least it worked a little bit.
It worked a little bit. Yeah, because network television, you get a new director every 8 days. So I was like, this is prime. This is a great way for me to figure this out. In the meantime, though, I got connected with another independent director, and so I started working for him kind of part-time freelance, just as an assistant. He was a local director, and so through him, I started doing a bunch of more corporate side of stuff. But he's the one that I ended up producing my first feature film before the age of 21 with him. And so I sort of was taught a lot about more of the producing side through him. And it was just a really great, again, I was still in school. But
you said you were 18 at the time whenever you did the first internship and you were in film school. So had you finished high school early or what was...
No, it was literally that summer.
So it was like before had you already started school or were you like beginning?
I mean, it was like barely my freshman year.
Okay.
So, but I was a really bad film school student because I was frustrated that I was having to leave film school to go to film sets. So it was funny because I ended up sort of moving my film school experience more to the film theory side as opposed to production, because I was getting a ton of production, just knowledge and whatnot on actual sets.
So where were you going for the film school stuff?
I was going to North Texas, so up in Denton.
Okay. With this kind of that going into things as you're going into school, and you mentioned moving over to more the theory side of stuff or whatever. Do you feel like that you were? Do you feel like it was worth going to school for that stuff, or in hindsight, would you go back and do it again, or what are your thoughts on schooling?
I'm so glad that you asked that question. I actually get asked that question a lot, surprisingly. I don't know why. Just probably because I have a really strong opinion on it. For me, school was very frustrating because I felt like I was being held back from what I wanted to do because I had to keep taking Spanish classes, if you will, to be able to graduate. So I finally kind of came to this conclusion that I think everyone needs to do something to where they're not stupid. So if that means working as an intern and actually being in whatever job you want to do, or if that means going to school, whatever that means for you, you do need some sort of training and equipping and people who are much smarter than you kind of telling you how to do things. Whether that's school or not, I don't really care, because I think you can find value outside of the quote unquote school system, especially in creative vocations like what we do. I don't think it's necessary. But that being said, if it's the thing that you need to not be stupid in what you're doing, by all means, go to school. But yeah, it was definitely a frustrating time for me because I just wanted to be on set. And so, yeah.
So did you end up finishing, graduating, or did you drop out?
I did. Okay. No, I did. I finished. It was one of those things where I kind of didn't realize how I was feeling about it until my junior and senior year. And at that point, I had put in this much of an effort towards it that I wanted to go ahead and finish it. But I did do everything possible to be able to finish it quickly.
Okay. So then, as far as once you got in and started doing the interning and you start working on these different shows and stuff, were you? Because I know now, I think you primarily do editing now, right?
Yeah, it's sort of pushed that way. My ideal situation would be to direct a feature film about every 3 years. It takes a lot out of you creatively, but I still love collaborating with other people, and so editing. I used to produce a lot, but editing seems to be where I've landed, where I still get to be involved in the storytelling aspects of things. So yeah, it has, for whatever reason, sort of in both the corporate side, but also the narrative side, it seems like editing has been where I've landed.
Now, but was that more of a Did you ever originally like see yourself doing that, or kind of go like, this is what I want to be doing and be an editor, or
I mean,
what
so
was
when
the
I
process
was
to kind of like narrow down to
when
that?
I was working for that guy in college, the director, I was doing a lot of corporate editing. I remember that we had this project that it was a karate instructional video, and they had filmed something like 200 karate moves, and I was literally having to like puzzle piece together the same thing over and over again. And in that time, I was like, I hate editing. This sucks. And so I never thought I'd go into editing. And but it was a skill that I had, and something that is easy. It was easy for me to kind of help out in that way when I was assisting other random people or whatever. But then when I directed my first feature film in 2014 and ended up editing it as well. And something clicked for me in that process, because I was faced with my own failures, if you will, as a director, like trying to edit my own stuff. And but in that process, editing came alive for me. There was something not working in... You saw a bunch of the cuts.
Oh, yeah.
So there's something not working in the first like 2 or 3 cuts, and I couldn't figure it out. And finally, a friend of mine said, why don't you just rearrange the whole thing? I was like, what?
I can do that?
I can't do that. I'm not allowed to do that. I was like, okay, I'll try it. And so I took a bunch of sticky notes and rearranged the entire film with sticky notes first, and then went into the edit and redid it, and it suddenly worked. And like a million light bulbs went off, where I was just like, this is unbelievable that you can go in and something that you intended this way, you can re-edit it, restructure it, rework things, and then suddenly you have a film that connects with people, that has an emotional through line that wasn't there beforehand. It's the same footage, it's just in a different order.
It's really the way you like cut it and put it together. It's like a lot of times... Really, I mean, while it really matters, it does matter how things are written, how things are shot. Like, ultimately, the editor is kind of where a lot of that final stuff really falls, because they're like the last person that touches that. They're the one that puts it together and kind of like ultimately decides what's in and what's not. And
definitely, it was really exciting to like see all that happen. So
now you're doing more editing. Mm-hmm. And you said you're doing about like half and half, like corporate versus like film stuff, features kind of stuff. What, I mean, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but you said you don't really do anything as far as like marketing and stuff. You just like have a few companies that you work for. Can you like unpack that and tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. I mean, I'm terrible at marketing myself. I think it's definitely a skill that I do not possess. And so I sort of stumbled on this idea, and when I realized that it worked really well, and then pushed it a little bit further. But I basically started assisting a bunch of local directors and producers. And so I would come and just do odd jobs on sets and meet more people and let DPs know, hey, I'm available to assist on anything. Here's the 5 things that I can do. And it ended up working out to where probably there were about 3 production companies that I had been assisting with for years that finally got to the point to where they needed me to help out in bigger roles. And so then I started producing for them, or would start, instead of just managing files or edits for them, would actually start editing the project all the way through. And so it was sort of this growing trust. You learn how certain people like things to be done, and you can sort of start adapting to that. And so really just kind of kept working with these people and essentially making myself valuable to them. And then probably right after I graduated college, started my own production company. I put that in quotes because it was literally just a name. And again, I was always being hired by other production companies to come in and do X, Y, or Z. So now I'm on a roster as a director with a production company. I do a lot of producing for another one. Another one sends me leads that are, not quite something that he wants to chase, but maybe on a smaller scale. So he'll literally just send me the lead, and under their company name, I will then head up whatever that project is. I have another one who literally just sends me hard drives, and I just edit things for them. So it's really, as a freelancer, really been kind of this amazing thing that I stumbled upon, because when I go off to do a feature film, I kind of call them up and say, hey, I'm unavailable for the next 6 weeks. When I get back, hey, I'm available again, and they'll send me work. So it's been incredible to be able to have those relationships. And, they're the ones that are going out and finding those jobs, and then I'm just making those jobs happen for them. So
That's rad.
Yeah, dude.
Congrats on that.
Thanks. As an introvert, it's like a really good place to be.
I believe that, especially it's interesting that it's cool that you're able to leave and go work on other projects for a while and come back and still have that in place, kind of to where you can do that. Because I feel like a lot of times that if companies are going to get to the point where they're bringing people in like that they're more likely to hire somebody on full time to do stuff. Mm-hmm. And so, and maybe this is just my lack of experience in that realm, but I would feel like that the position that you're in, they would be more likely to either be like, well, we'll have some stuff here and there, or have somebody on full time. Yeah,
I mean, that definitely has happened. That 5 or 6 companies has changed throughout the years, because the jobs that I would do as a contract worker, maybe I couldn't fulfill that as their own companies start growing, and so they'd hire someone in. I think it's there's still that sort of nervousness that comes in with freelancers of, you're either going to be in a feast or famine situation. And so, that's still, even though that I've seemed to find this random way to get jobs, there's still not a guarantee with that. I'm not contracted with them. I don't have any sort of retainer with them or anything. And so if they don't have any jobs, I don't have any jobs. So, there's still definitely that toss up.
Do you find that having those hands in like several different places like that brings you work more consistently, or is it the like feast and famine but like multiplied to where it's like whenever you have it a lot you're like slammed, but then when you don't, you have like, because I think I know for me ideally like the idea is that you get to a point where you kind of just like you have your hands in a few different things, and work is kind of like whenever one thing's down, another one's up. So you always have this like nice ebb and flow. But I've never actually been able to actually get to that point. It's always
I don't think that exists. Like, I mean, it's. I don't know. I don't understand it. I don't understand why, because I try and like look back at the year before and I'm like, okay, it's really busy during this month, so that means I'm going to be really busy again. Nope. And again, it's things that are out of my control as far as like what jobs are available, there does seem to be a little bit of some flex with fiscal years with companies that are looking for video work. But I mean, I think this past year it's leveled out a little bit, but my husband's a freelancer too. And so we both sort of live, like a couple weeks ago, we were both sitting on the couch, like twiddling our thumbs, kind of like, oh no. But then this week has been insane. So I don't know. I like that aspect of freelance work, and that you never have the same day twice. But I don't think that. I think that's like a mythical thing where you can just have constant work. Maybe some people have figured that out, but I don't know how to do that.
Maybe that's like being hired somewhere.
Yeah.
Versus like being freelance.
Yeah.
What are you like from your experience and whatnot? If you're talking to somebody that's new, that's getting into freelancing, or maybe they've even been in it for a year or two. What do you feel like are some of the more important things for them to know or to focus on or to like put their time into?
Freelancing is so much about networking and finding relationships and cultivating those. So I tell people all the time, just be a kind human being, and I guarantee you'll be hired again. There's a certain level of course, like learning and expertise and talent that you need to have. But what it comes down to are those relationships and like, once you get the job, being hired again. So being a kind person is like the number one advice I give. Outside of that is just kind of, you need to have sort of a steel stomach, meaning like you are going to be in those feast or famine zones. And when you're working a lot, being able to, honestly, like use your time wisely and that extra income wisely so that when you're in those times where there's no work, you can relax a little bit, but always knowing that those next jobs will come, and keep going after them and they'll come. And everyone is going through the same thing. Every freelancer is trying to find that next job and is not sure exactly where it's going to come from. And so you're not alone in that. But yeah, I think those relationships and just being able to, that like catchphrase networking, I think that just boils down to like, do you work well with others? Yes or no?
Do you, as far as you're talking about like money and planning ahead kind of, and like the feast or famine kind of stuff. What, have you always been like done a good job of planning ahead for that kind of stuff?
No.
Or what's that process been like? Cause I know for me, the first couple of years, I'm 5 years in and I'm just now kind of really feeling like I'm getting a grasp on whenever there's like, maybe I have really great month, there's a lot of money in my account and I'm have to be like, hold on.
Yep.
Because next month might not be this way.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I definitely was not always that way. And don't forget, I technically started freelancing. I've never had a job that wasn't freelance. That's not true. I was a waitress for like 6 months. That's my only like actual job that I had that has not been sort of this way. So I've been working as a freelancer for 13 years now. So I've been trying to figure this out for a long time. But yeah, in college, that was really hard because thankfully I still had some support systems so where I couldn't make rent and I was able to, get a loan for a little while to be able to cover that. But yeah, I think that's the hardest thing because you're not automatically really good at being able to manage your money. So I think just having people around you that can support you, even if it's just telling you you're going to be okay, don't worry. But yeah, I think that's that restraint when you do get those months where you made more than you've ever made before or something, being able to be like, hang on, like calm down. Let's find a place to put that money so that next month when I don't have that job, I can still buy groceries. So
yeah. Now with your the nature of your freelance stuff, I think is interesting too. At least because a lot of the projects that I do are like full production, are with like a business to business deal where it's another company that's come to hire me to produce a video. Whereas for you, it's more, I don't know, it's a third party. Is that,
that's a good way of putting it, yeah.
We'll say, yeah. And so you're being contracted by a company that's been contracted. So It's subcontracting. There we go. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
There we go.
The hierarchy.
How do you handle those situations as far as like contracts or payment schedules, or if they don't pay you, and like all of those kinds of things?
It's a good question. There are a couple of these companies that I have sort of just a good track record with, and so it's honestly more of a spoken contract. There are a couple of companies that I will send a proposal for, how much I think that this project is going to take and that like lays everything out as far as expectations for each party. And then there's some where I just say, pay me 50% up front and 50% when I deliver. So it's going back to that whole relationship thing. I have different relationships with each of these companies. And so depending on the project and the company, I have sort of different ways to protect everyone. I always say, like, make sure that you get everything written down in an email. So if you have a phone call and you guys figure out something, send an email that has that. And I always say it's just to keep everyone friends, because you want to have, if there is ever an issue, you want to have that written proof of, this is what we talked about. Just send me an email back that says yes. So yeah, it's a hard one to kind of answer.
Yeah, I get that.
Tried or true thing.
And it's interesting, like, talking about that stuff. It's how I feel like every time I talk with people about stuff like this and about how they like move forward with stuff, a lot of it comes back down to communication.
Absolutely.
And just like everybody kind of being on the same page.
Yeah.
And I've even gotten to the point, kind of to your point about emails and like keeping everything written down, where if I get off a phone call with somebody, I'll take notes while I'm on the call and then get done and be like, okay, these are all the things that we talked about.
I know you were there, but
yeah, or I'll ask the client or whoever it is I'm talking to, cool, when we get out the phone, will you send me an email, please, that has like all this stuff, just like recap, because I know we talked about it, but I need to have it like written down somewhere. And I've even got to the point now where sometimes I'll have clients that would like text me, or if it was somebody that was like even more close with it, maybe they message me on Facebook, and so we'll have like a little bit of a conversation here, a little bit over here in text, a little bit over here in email, and I've gotten to the point where it's like, hey, email me. Like, we're going to keep it all right here in email, so it's all in this one place.
It's so funny you say that, because I mentioned my husband Cameron is also a freelancer. He does the same thing. His voicemail says, please email me. If anyone texts him, he won't respond to their text other than saying, hey, good to hear from you. Please send me this in an email. Because it's the same thing. Like, you can there's so many ways to contact you nowadays that it can just get really messy. And so finding that way to sort of boil things down so that you always have like a database really of like, this is what we talked about. But yeah, phone calls can get tricky because, someone might remember something differently. So yeah, it's good.
So you mentioned the short film a couple of years, or not a short film, it was a feature-length film, Sunny in the Dark. So a few years back, Courtney produced, or what were all of your roles then? Director and editor?
Directed, produced, and edited.
Directed, produced, and edited.
Yep.
Very pretty film. Great movie.
Thanks.
Sunny in the Dark. You should check it out. That's available.
Plug. It's available on iTunes, Amazon Prime, Google Play, and Vimeo on demand.
Cool. I recommend it. It was shot just up the block from my studio.
It was.
The American Beauty Mill Lofts here in the Cedars in Dallas, Texas.
Yep.
And where else can people find you online?
Yeah. So my quote-unquote production company is awarefilms.com. Aware Films is, of course, a play off my last name, Courtney Ware.
I am aware of that.
Yes. It's funny. It's funny, like, when I introduce myself and tell them what my company name is, like, the slow dawning of, yeah, that's clever.
I get it. That's good.
So, yeah. Really, like, I don't really market myself through that company. So all of my narrative works that are directed and really coming from me personally are through Aware Films. Most everything else is through other production companies, like I mentioned. I just edited a feature film called Never Going Back, which A24 picked up. We went to Sundance and South by, and that's been a really fun project. But I edited it with the director, Augustine Frizzell. So that is actually being released on August 3rd. So that's exciting. So you can see that.
Congrats on that.
Thank you. Just got another feature film editing job that hopefully will be released next year, that I'm really excited about. And yeah, other than that, find me on Instagram. And
Cool. What does it take? In your experience, on average, how long does it take to start to finish to edit a feature length film?
oh man, that's a hard one. It just depends. It really depends on if things are clicking from day one, or Sunny in the Dark took me 6 months of editing, just because you keep knocking your head up against the wall and it's still not working. And then finally it does. And then you're like, okay, I fixed the problem, but now I've caused myself 4 other problems in the timeline. So I got to go fix all that. So, whereas Never Going Back was probably the fastest editing turnaround that I've ever experienced, ever, in all of my experience in different forms. We shot it in August. I was editing on set. I had the first cut 2 days after we wrapped. I had the entire film was cut. And then so that would have been September. We got the notification that we got into Sundance in November, and then had to deliver it by December. So we had basically gone from September to December, from a rough cut to the fine cut. It was panic inducing.
Had y'all not done anything on it during that time in between?
Oh no,
or what
we were still working on it,
okay.
But nobody ever assumes that you're going to get into Sundance. And so we were like, yeah, if we get into Sundance. And then we got the notification, and it was our timeline suddenly jumped to a much shorter timeline. What we assumed was actually going to happen with not getting in didn't actually happen. And so suddenly we had to hurry up on a lot of things. So that's where a co-editing thing was really great. I have a picture of Augustine, the director, and I on the same desk, in the same room, in the project, on 2 different sections of the film, working at the same time. And so that was nice because we got things done almost twice as fast. So it was a really crazy thing. I don't recommend doing things like that.
Well, I don't feel like I have any more questions right now.
That's good.
Do you have anything else that you want to talk about, or you feel like that we haven't covered that people should know about you, or words of wisdom about freelancing that you have to share that we have not talked about?
No, I feel like we covered a lot of everything. I think just if you're wanting to go into freelance work, just know, it's going to be, it's a high risk, high reward lifestyle. So just, I think if you have those expectations going into it, then, you'll be able to reap those rewards. So.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Casey.
Yep. Have a good one. See you next time.
Adios.
Freelance Friday is a Vaycasey production. Vaycasey is a full-service video production company based in Dallas, Texas. Vaycasey. Big video production value, freelance agility and scale.